Good afternoon and welcome to the October 23rd, 2024 CDBG Advisory Committee meeting. The time is 1:43 p.m. I'll begin with the roll call. And actually, I will turn the meeting over to Chair Avedisian.
Good afternoon and welcome to October 23rd, 2024 CDBG Advisory Committee special meeting. Roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Present.
Garibian,
Here.
Quinones Gabrielian is absent, Vice Chair Manukian,
Present.
and Chair Avedisian.
Present.
The agenda for the October 23rd, 2024 special meeting of the CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on or before Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2 is minutes. At A is approval of the minutes of the August 28, 2024 CDBG Advisory Committee special meeting.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I move to approve the minutes of August 28, 2024.
I second that.
Okay, and I will take roll call.
Have a motion and a
Committee
second?
members Armenian,
I abstain since I was not present at the meeting.
thank you. Garibian,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian is absent, Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes.
and Chair Avedisian.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next is item 3, oral communications. I don't have any callers or cards. Item 4, action items. At A is preliminary proposed fiscal year 2025 through 2026 CDBG funding allocation plan by funding category. At 1 is a motion to approve the preliminary proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG funding allocation plan by funding category.
Thank you, Iris. Chair of Avedisian, members of the CDBG Advisory Committee, we have a PowerPoint presentation for you today regarding the preliminary proposed 25-26 CDBG funding allocation plan. So I'll go ahead and get started on that. Our recommendation is for the committee to approve the funding allocation plan for the upcoming year. So before we get into the plan itself, we want to give the committee some news out of Washington. At this time, Congress has passed a continuing resolution again this year, and that will go through December 20th of 2024. The Congress decided to wait until after the November elections and also to avoid a government shutdown. So we will be anticipating, hopefully, a final budget in February or March, but that still remains kind of up in the air as it has in previous years. So the appropriation levels will remain the same, and that's how we are putting this funding allocation plan together, estimating it at the levels they are currently and have been in the past. Now, we might need to do a CDBG contingency plan in our spring meeting, in our February-March meeting, depending if we don't get the final allocation numbers in from HUD. So we'll come back to you and we will present you with a report on that if that happens to be the case. But at this time, we're on a continuing resolution as we've been in the past. So that being said, the 2025-2026 available funding is estimated at $1.7 million. We do not have any undesignated fund balance to report. We have no return funds from canceled CIP projects to report. So we are looking at 1.7 million, a clean 1.7 million for the upcoming year. And how are we breaking that down? So program administration at 20% will take 340,000 of that 1.7 million. Public social services at the 15% cap will be at $255,000. And then capital improvement projects at 1.1 million will be broken down. First, we're going to have $605,000 proposed to community agencies. That's about 54.75% of the funds going to community agencies. And then the city pre-designated fund of $500,000 broken down a little bit further. Elk Mini Park Playground Replacement Project and Wilson Mini Park Playground Replacement Projects at $250,000 each, which comprises that $500,000. So altogether, that's the 1.7 million that we're anticipating and how we would like it broken down. So I'll get into the city pre-designated projects for the mini park playground replacements. First is Elk Mini Park, located at 800 East Elk Avenue. As you can see from the pictures, it is worn, the slide itself, and then the area, we wanted to present the area that it's in. So the project cost is estimated at about $250,000. This is the third mini park that was completed by the city back in 2003. So it's about 16 years old. 13,500 square feet facility includes a small children's playground, picnic tables, open shaded lawn, and then craftsman style trellis over a mosaic tile entry. Now, no improvements have been made to this playground since its opening 21 years ago. And the scope of work that is included is design and installing a playground replacement with poured-in-place PIP rubber outdoor surfacing, and then the project is anticipated to be completed by spring of 2026. And then next we have Wilson Mini Park. Wilson Mini Park was actually one of the very first parks that were designed and built by the city of Glendale back in 1991. It's a 13,900 square foot facility with a small children's playground with the PIP rubber outdoor surfacing, benches, picnic tables, open shaded lawn area, and then the shaded tree-lined entry. Now, no improvements have been made to the playground since 2008, and I apologize, I had said 16 years ago, but I meant for Wilson Mini Park. And then scope of work on this is design and install a playground replacement with new PIP rubber outdoor surfacing. And again, this project is estimated to be completed by spring of 2026. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I will go back to the breakdown if I can. Iris?
Question? You have a question, Mr. Armenian?
Two questions. For the sake of our viewers, can you, I know it says in here in the packet that public social service funds are capped at 15% of entitlement. Explain why we have that sort of restriction, because obviously the difference is very big between social services and capital.
That's a good question. We actually looked into that, committee member Armenian. This was a question that came up by the committee last meeting that we had. And what we had done was we had a request by the committee to draft a letter to Congress, to our lawmakers, and ask them, because this is a federal requirement, and to ask them to please lift the cap on the 15%. Now, again, I had mentioned previously, if we lift the cap on the public social services, we will lose in capital. Your money is not going to change, it's just going to be shifted around a little bit. So we did send out a letter, and that letter went out to Senators Padilla,
Butler?
Schiff, and Butler, yeah, as well as the acting director, or I should say acting secretary of HUD.
Did we get a response?
We have not.
When
Mr.
did the letters go
Bullenkamp
out?
It went out about a month ago.
And, but going back, the exception request otherwise aside, what is the explanation in terms of why HUD has that sort of cap?
I can give you a brief history, maybe a very generalized history. The reason why, this is capital improvement project funds. It's community development block grant. It started during, it was 50 years ago, of course. We just celebrated our 50-year anniversary of CDBG. Now, CDBG started in the wake of many social programs that were coming to fruition. And one of those was during, not riots so much, but the uprisings in the 70s. And they felt that redevelopment and revitalizing communities was very important, especially in urban areas. And that's how it started. So it started really towards just capital improvement. Now, throughout the years, and I believe in the 1990s, but I'd have to go do my homework a little bit, they actually added the component of public social services because they realized that's also an important part of revitalizing communities, is the public social services factor. But I can easily present a report to the committee to break down the time frame and the timeline of how it evolved.
I don't want to create work for the committee. I just wanted kind of a broader explanation for the viewers who may be viewing this proceeding. But I do have a recommendation on this, which is, I don't know if we're talking to our counterpart cities, Burbank, Pasadena, others who have CDBG, so that we can have more of a collective voice with those elected leaders. I think that would help maybe as another step, because it does seem like we're caught in a historical rationale as to why this cap exists, and there ought to be some sort of correction, because I'm also thinking about the 255, such a little amount for the number of applicants we can already expect that we're going to get, and we're trying to have meaningful programs. And we know, I think, although capital improvement projects have been very important for our organizations and the city, like the parks, but social services is what really kind of helps with the homelessness problem and other key social issues that we have as a society. And I think Glendale fares better in that category than our other cities around us potentially. So anyway, if we could do a little bit more beyond our letter, maybe get a few more letters going in from Burbank, Pasadena, and other cities, the easy ones, let's say, that we normally partner with, I think that will get more attention from those elected leaders. And I know we're in the middle of an election in 2 weeks and lots going to change, but it's still worth getting it out. The second question I have is with the 2 mini park replacement projects, just want to get a sense from Director Bulanikian, how many park projects do we have the capacity to manage from a project management perspective? Because we have several in flight already, right? And these would add 2 more, or are they sequenced so that you're not hemorrhaging, so many projects?
That's a great question. Chair Avedisian, members of the committee. Basically, we currently have 2 playground projects, 3 playground projects in the works. One will be completed by next month, and then we have another 2 that we're working on. So by the time these 2 projects are funded, the 2 that we're currently working on will probably be completed. So we have more than enough capacity to handle these 2 playground projects.
And do you tend to bid these together so that you get some sort of
We'll be bidding them out together, yes, to get a better
advantage?
discount.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Question?
Yes. Thanks for the report. Just quickly on the PIP rubber that we have on the parks, how environmental is that? What kind of rubber is it? Is it something that it's environmentally safe rubbers, or what kind?
Great question. Yeah, the PMP, the pour in place material is all recycled material, and they're safe. When the playground is built, we do have a safety inspector that comes in, checks the playground as well as the pour in place.
So the rubber
The
part
rubber is, to be honest, is safer than the wood chips because the wood chips have to be maintained on a daily basis. Our groundskeepers find things that aren't supposed to be in those wood chips pretty much, once or twice a week at all of our playgrounds. The pour in place material is much easier to maintain.
Are these the pieces, or it's like a carpet?
It's basically a rubberized material. They pour it dries out, and it's one level.
Thank you.
Sure.
Question? Go ahead.
In regards to the 2 capital improvement projects for the city, the mini parks, what was the thought process in selecting these 2? Is it basically going back to whichever is the oldest, or is it area-driven? Just want to understand how you picked those 2.
It's a number of reasons. Number one, in South Glendale, we want to target South Glendale by using CDBG funds. And Wilson Mini Park and Elk Mini Park, these are heavily used playgrounds. We have a lot of caregivers, a lot of grandparents that bring in their grandchildren, young toddlers, to both these playgrounds. And of course, the age. These playgrounds are over 15 years old.
Thank you.
One quick question, if anybody else doesn't. First of all, welcome, Mrs. Gabrielan, to meeting. You made it. The safety factor, I know there's two parks, basically they're on a corner of intersections and a stop sign or lighted, but then again, they're all open. So when we have a park and the kids are running around, the safety factor, how is it managed? Is the playgrounds further inside the property than more on the outside? Or how is it planned, or do you plan to revise it otherwise?
For Elk Mini Park, it's pretty much in the center of the park. Both parks are fenced. Wilson is close to the street, but both of the parks are fenced. We plan on just replacing the playground and not moving the playground into a central location. That'll be a larger project. You're looking at probably close to 750,000 to $1 million
Oh, to move them?
to move the
Further
playground.
back?
Yes, because ADA access comes into play, irrigation, and so on. All that.
Alrighty, thank you very much, appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? No? What's next, please?
The record will show that committee member Quinones Gabrielian is now part of the meeting. She joined at 1:51 p.m. And next on the agenda, B, 2025 to 2030 Consolidated Plan Program Priorities and Fiscal Year 2025-2026 CDBG Program.
Can we take a motion for the first item?
I apologize, that's correct. We do need a motion for item 4A. I apologize.
That's right, we all missed it. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the preliminary proposed plan for 25-26?
So I make a motion to approve.
Motion is made, second?
Second.
Thank you. Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Caribbean,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes.
and Chair Avedisian.
Yes,
Okay, motion carries.
thank you.
And then now we'll go back to 4B. And at 4B1 is motion to approve the 2025-2030 Consolidated Plan Program Priorities and Fiscal Year 2025-2026 CDBG Program Priorities.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, we have a very comprehensive report for you today regarding our 2025-2030 consolidated plan program priorities. Staff and our consultant had worked tirelessly and effortlessly to gather as much community input as possible because we are developing a 5-year plan and moving it forward. So this development of the 5-year consolidated plan is required, and due to that, we had extensive outreach, analysis, and preparation that went along with this. Multiple efforts and platforms were considered to gather community input this year. Not that we don't do that every year, but this year in particular, because we really needed to gather more of a plan, priorities that were going to be strategic for the next 5 years. So I'm going to get into the methodology of this assessment that we do that's in part of the community, that's part of the consolidated plan. So the methodology we used was we started with a community needs survey. We had presented that to the committee last time that we met, and we revised a lot of those questions with the committee input that you had given, excellent input that was given to us, and we included that as part of the community survey. Now, that survey was available from September 16th through this October 16th. And because of that survey, we received 759 respondents had taken the survey, and now we've got that information and the data was received and tabulated. We presented this survey in English, Armenian, and Spanish. We felt that was very important. And then we held a community meeting. The community meeting was held on October 2nd, 2024. This was held at 6:30 in the evening. We had 120 persons who attended and participated in this meeting. And for those of you who have attended before, you know that we get about 3 or 5 people. So 120 people attending was quite a feat, and we were really proud of that. We also did a lot of community outreach through city and community events, programs. We went to various Glendale businesses. We worked with Glendale Unified School District. We worked with Glendale Community College. We talked to our hospitals. So we got the word out to pretty much everyone in Glendale that we could. We also provide data results, data analysis every year, just to keep up with our census, just to see where we're at as a city and what the numbers look like. So I'll go ahead and get started with Community Needs Survey. This survey was presented and provided to our nonprofits at our CDBG open house, and we asked them to please share it with their clients that they serve, because we really want to hear from the people who are actually utilizing these funds. Of course, we used our city and department website, City Connections newsletter that's released by the city manager's office each month, our Parks newsletter, our email distribution list. We placed it at all our city counters at Housing, Glendale Water and Power, and all our parks facilities and areas. And then we had various community events that CDBG staff attended and presented this survey and asked folks to take the survey. Downtown Glendale businesses, and as we had mentioned, Glendale Unified School District, our nonprofit email distribution list, and of course, social media. So we really did an all-out media blast. And then we're going to give you a little bit of analysis of the survey. So I had mentioned that 759 responses were given to us, and we had asked them to rank program priorities. They were asked about their lived experiences, and the average time that they took to complete the survey was anywhere between 12 and 15 minutes. There were about 17 questions in total. Now, 92.55% of the respondents identified themselves as Glendale residents. So we got mainly Glendale residents who responded to this survey. The highest number, 34, almost 35% of the respondents were between the ages of 35 and 44. And then 73% of the respondents selected white as their racial category. Then we broke it down a little further. 36.62% of the respondents selected Armenian as their ethnic category, and 25.25% of the respondents selected Hispanic as their ethnic category, just to give you a breakdown. And then 55.59% identified themselves as renters, while 43.77% identified themselves as homeowners. The other question we had was, how do they prefer to learn about city meetings and events? So the top two answers were via email or social media. Email came in at 55.41%. A little over half wanted to hear about all the events that we have via email. And then respondents, of course, ranked the public social services, community facility improvements, housing, and neighborhood improvements in order of importance to them in that ranking system that we had presented to you. Wanted to share some pictures of our community meeting. Our community meeting, like I had mentioned, was held on October 2nd at the Adult Recreation Center. Now, this meeting, we had some ways to entice folks to attend. We offered an In-N-Out food truck, and we said, come and get a free dinner. We have free childcare, and we're going to be giving out raffle prizes. We want to hear from you. And we have that little young gentleman. He was great. His mom came and helped out, and she gave some great feedback. You see Ms. Kabanjian is there. She's helping someone take a survey, getting more feedback. And we had 3 breakout sessions. We had breakout sessions in English, Armenian, and Spanish, so everyone got a chance to participate and give their commentary and feedback, as well as take the survey and add additional information that they felt was necessary as a way to utilize these funds. We also had outreach efforts in the community. We had gone to the Armenian American Museum Festival a few weeks ago. We went to Ballet Folklorico Mexico Azteca event. We had gone to the Community Fall Fair at the Glendale Presbyterian Church in South Glendale. We had attended estate planning workshops, library arts and culture poetry nights, storybook science, STEAM superheroes events, And then we had gone and placed the community needs survey at all these Glendale businesses up and down downtown Glendale on brand. So we tried to get every type of resident or someone who works here or someone goes to school here to participate, to get a real good feedback and analysis. Now, we also went to our American Community Survey data analysis that we do each year. And this kind of keeps us abreast of what's happening and what are some changes within our community. This is the updated 2023 census results of key demographic indicators. Interestingly enough, Glendale's population is still declining. It's at 187,050. So this is a 2,171 person decrease from last year, which was 189,221. We believe that in 2020 census, it was 196,000, so we keep losing residents in Glendale. Glendale's poverty level is at 13.4% of Glendale families who are living below the poverty line, while in Los Angeles County, that's 13.9%. 18% of Glendale's population are children under the age of 18, which is a lower percentage than LA County, which is 20.2%. However, 18.4% of Glendale's population is 65 years and older, which is a higher percent than Los Angeles County, whose average is 15.7%. Now, the median rent for Glendale is $2,002 compared to $1,805 in Los Angeles County. So this is kind of a breakdown of that we do each year, like I had mentioned, and it kind of gives us a way to figure out where to make funding decisions, in a sense. And the community needs survey was basically broken down by our consulting firm of Veronica Tam and Associates. And what they did was they helped to tabulate and rank the survey by a weighted measure. So they had given a weight to the number 1 rank and number 2 rank and number 3, depending on how many questions there were, how many choices there were. So for instance, public facilities ranked, number 1 rank is indoor community centers, was considered number 1. Outdoor parks and recreation facilities, number 2, and libraries, number 3. Number 4 was homeless day centers. We call them multi-purpose community centers, but it was homeless day centers. And then for public social services, the number 1 ranking was anti-crime programs. So this is a new one. This is a very new phenomenon this year that we noticed. Number 2 was mental health services. Number 3 was homeless services. Number 4 was senior services. 5 was services for the disabled. 6 was youth services. 7 was employment services. 8 was domestic violence services. And 9 was legal services. Now for public and neighborhood improvements, sidewalk improvements were ranked the highest, where accessibility improvements came in 2nd, and neighborhood beautification projects 3rd. Street and alleyway improvements came in 4th. For housing, no surprise here, affordable rental housing, that was number 1 ranking, and I won't get into all the list, but that was not only on the survey, but the comments during the community meeting. It was just constantly in all 3 breakout sessions, affordable rental housing, and home buyer assistance as well. So that was a hot button issue for sure. And Chair Avedisian, you were there, I'm sure you witnessed some of the questions and the back and forth from our housing department, who happened to be there and provided a lot of that information. And I know she was floating around breakout session to breakout session to answer those questions. For special needs housing, number 1, housing for the disabled was ranked 1st, and housing for seniors 2nd, and then housing for youth 3rd. And then lastly, homeless services. Now, homeless services, priorities are combined. So this is not just survey results, but this is survey and community meeting discussion combined. Number one was mental health services for the homeless, then permanent supportive housing, and then emergency housing and shelter, and then homeless prevention and outreach, rapid rehousing, and then transitional housing. I know there's a lot of information, so if you have any questions, I can go back and forth. I'm going to delve a little deeper into it, and then, yes.
Question? Go ahead.
I do, yes. I don't know what happened. Within those major categories, was there any ranking information?
Within the categories of those, there was not. Those were the categories, so there were no subcategories within the ranking. Is that the question?
No, within, for example, if you look at the main categories, I understand the ranking within the category. How about a ranking of the general categories?
There was not.
Okay.
There was not. Sorry, we're going to get this back.
Question? Ms. Monica?
Just maybe it's my ignorance, but anti-crime programs, what is meant by that? Because, public social services is on our list, but I'm not sure I understand what kind of program would fit that category.
It's interesting that you say that. We questioned that ourselves. We were under the impression anti-crime programs could be youth employment type services, even self-defense classes, some way, somehow to help with anti-crime in a sense. Or even we have a STAR program, for instance, with our Glendale Police Department and our Youth and Family Services. That could be considered an anti-crime type of a program, even though those teenagers aren't,
Criminals.
I don't want to say criminals, but are at risk, teens. But those could be considered types of programs that we could
But is that
fund.
what the survey responders understood to be the programs, or did they have some other
I'll be
request
truthful.
of patrolling, for example?
I'll be truthful with you. Most of the respondents, at least the feedback that we got, it's really, it's the climate of today. It's the smash and grabs that they've seen, the young people in the community. So we feel like they rank that first for that reason. It's just whatever's happening at this time in our community, or communities, I should say.
I'll defer to Mr. Garibian.
No, please, no, go ahead.
First of all, congratulations and thank you to the staff for the great turnout for the meeting. That's an incredible result to get that. And other than the in-and-out truck, what explanation do you have as to why it was such a big jump?
That's a great question.
Or
I
just your
think-
speculation or your gut?
Well,
your gut?
we also did, and I didn't mention this, we sent out 23,000 mailers to the census tracts in and around the Adult Recreation Center in the low and moderate income census tracts. We actually tabulated how many people came from those mailers, and it was about 25. So that wasn't too many versus the 120. We really truly believe it was the outreach that we did, the early outreach that we did, the marketing, kind of hooking them into the dinner. It was very surprising. I honestly, as staff, we were nervous because we did invest a lot of money into this marketing campaign to get people in, and it worked, thank goodness. I honestly think it was our efforts, early efforts to market and get the word out to everyone. And we really did work with our nonprofits too to get their clients to come and participate, because we really do want to hear from them as well.
So again, really appreciate the staff's effort in doing that. That's such an important foundational, because we're going to base decisions on this kind of input. So, and I know how hard it is to get people to show up. Was there, related to that, was there any sort of, did you notice any sort of interest area that drove some of the attendance? For example, you mentioned a lot of people talked about rent control. We know that there's organized groups around rent control. Like, was there kind of an organized effort like that by any of the groups to show up?
We did. We had one group that showed up. They were really passionate about neurodivergent, and I placed it in the report. It was a table with folks who either lived in Glendale or worked in Glendale with neurodivergent children and adults with autism and different types of intellectual disabilities. And they had a lot of insight to offer. So they came in with a very specific needs that need to be met using the funds, using CDBG funds. So they really were there for a specific reason. Most of the folks were residents, local residents who really wanted to just be heard and talk about, of course, sidewalk improvements and, you know, the basics, as we call them. But that one actually stood out because we haven't had that too much before.
Thank you.
Mr.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Great report. I read most of it last night, and coming back to that anti-crime program, I read it somewhere. It was mentioned mainly for self-defense. I don't know, was that I read it at the report last night. Is that something came from the surveys, or that's something you're guessing?
No, that came from the community meeting, committee member Garibian. That was mentioned as part of the community meeting, that they were thinking to have more self-defense classes. And again, this conversation came up with the smash and grabs and what they're seeing in their community at this time. So that's how it came about, but it was not part of the survey, no.
Yeah, because that was sort of odd for me to have karate classes for them now. I don't know, that doesn't make sense. And she asked earlier, as far as ranking between the categories, there's no such thing. But we're not done with the survey, but I'm going forward with, if we have 55% renters and 43% homeowners, obviously when it comes to housing, the answers could totally change depending how many percent of who you got there. You didn't read within the number of homeowners in Glendale versus non-homeowners and renters, the percentage. That also changes the result you'll have on the questions, because you have more non-owners, more renters than you have than owners. So that's why having this small group of numbers, that could completely change of our answers and results, depending who shows up, the non-owner, the renters, or I'm just picking on the housing, but it goes no matter which one you pick on. I know you guys did a lot of math, which is great. The number went up, and some of them, obviously, you mentioned internet is an issue. But I think if we do more social media marketing for them to get engaged, we should get bigger percentage of individuals, because this information could change depending who you get.
Right.
So, all right, thank you.
Another question? I'll make a couple of questions. First of all, it was the October 2nd event. It was really surprising to me when I walked in. And I walked in, I think it was like 6:10 or something like that, and the hall was full. I was extremely surprised. I was thinking that I'm going to walk into a big hall with 2 or 3 community members, but it was extremely surprising that there were that many participating. Yes, I'm sure the dinner had a big factor in it. Marketing and however you guys reached out, it really did make a difference. And I think we have a bigger potential of getting in the future, getting this more of the community members involved somehow, whatever. But whatever we did or you did, it was great. It did work out. Question for me, by any chance, do we know if the poverty line that we mentioned is like 13.4 for Glendale? Do we know what's the state or the national numbers?
That's a good question. I'd have to look that up, and I could probably look that up and find it for you by the end of the meeting today.
That's fine. I'm just wondering if you do have it within the report or anywhere. Then I'll look it up also. It's interesting. It's not good. 13%, I don't think it's a good number, at least for a city of Glendale. For our community, we should have a better potential, having less of that poverty line in our community. One thing that Mr. Arabian mentioned about, I think it was about the safety and the people asking about the classes and whatnot. I believe, yeah, it did came out from the community members list one, and this were, I think, a lot of them joined this person, and they were more on a older side, the age-wise, they were a little bit higher on the age, who were asking about some sort of a self-defense or some sort of a service like that for their own personal protection and comfort. Which again, I don't know, maybe some of our nonprofits can look into it. With that, they can engage more community members within their programs if there is a need with that.
You mean, sorry, just on that, so you mean more seniors? Is that who? older?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I didn't want to put an actual number, yeah, there were more of the seniors. And I just looked around, it was a mixed group of people. It wasn't just Hispanic, it wasn't just Armenian. I think we had Asians from all around. It was a good mix of people, so it wasn't just as set to one group, being involved in the meeting, which was good. And that community, that group that showed up and asking the questions, and the organized group, it was interesting that they even showed up, and they brought up a couple of good questions and suggestions, maybe down the road, something that somebody can look into it. I don't know if it's our job as a commission or the community, but someone can look into that and maybe get that part of their nonprofit organization workload. Any other question? If not, again, thank you for the report.
Absolutely.
And thank you and we have a motion.
I would like to add, before we move to provide a motion, we did want to share with the committee that currently the program priorities are in ranking order. They don't necessarily have to stay in ranking order. If you want them to be in alphabetical order and we can distinguish high priority need, we can do that as well. So this is something that the committee can actually have a discussion on or decide as well. So right now, they're numbered. But again, they don't necessarily have to be. So you let us know how you would like us to present that for the next 5 years.
Could you put that back up, what you had?
Sure. This is,
And is that ranking, it's a reflection of the input received, right?
correct.
And based on the motion, if we approve this plan and like make a motion to approve it, like how much are we locked in to that ranking?
Well, it's gonna.
We don't know what we're gonna get in terms of
Correct,
proposals, right?
Correct. So you have a choice. You're not technically locked in a sense, but for 5 years, you're gonna see that indoor community centers are gonna be the top priority. But again, every year we go out and we still ask the community the same questions, and it could change. So it's really up to the committee to decide how do you want to present
So
this.
we would go out and say, presumably, hypothetically, that you would say, based on these priorities that we approve, you would tell the organizations, based on those priorities, if you have proposals specific on indoor community centers,
Or
please make
anti-crime
Yeah,
programs.
please make sure to prioritize putting in that sort of proposal, right? Like you would encourage it on the front
We
end.
would, exactly.
Okay, so then can we go back to that list?
So this is the list that's ranked, but I can change it and make it alphabetical. And you would see in alphabetical order.
But you had another slide that
Right,
summarized that.
so I
already.
can
Okay.
include a high priority need. So for instance, if we look at public social services, oops, I did it again. Public social services, anti-crime programs could be a high priority need without numbers.
But I mean, if you go back to the other slide, with the summary, no, the
Which slide is that?
Other way.
other way,
The last one?
that one.
Okay.
Like, for example, personally, I would not put anti-crime programs at the top of the list. We've given money before to GWP on the STARS program, et cetera, and they're all good programs, but I wouldn't prioritize that as a top priority if that's the kind of proposal it's going to attract. I think there are other things, you know, in the community that are of higher need. For example, homelessness services is at the bottom of this #1 ranking list. To me, that's a high end. You already heard in there, like, the affordable housing issue is a big rank. So anyway, I'm just throwing out some quick thoughts just to inform that maybe the committee does want to consider reordering those, even though I think you're pulling from what you heard. This isn't the staff recommendation, right?
It is not.
Okay. This is purely a reflection of input received.
From the surveys.
From the survey and the
Survey.
tabulation.
Yeah, so I think we should have our own stamp on it because we are also more familiar as a committee with the organizations and what sort of things are normally coming in.
I think I was going to continue the same, the ranking it the way we have from 759 total, right? And some of them actually have 650, some didn't even.
Some didn't complete.
Didn't even complete, like 100 of them fell out. And, you know, obviously the age, it's from 25 to 65, we have almost everyone there. And this ranking that we have, according to those people, I think it's a very small number of people compared to the agencies that they service are much larger amount of people. Even though it's granted, it's great, but anti-crime program, as my colleague mentioned, I don't think I want to have that on a priority based on what we have been seeing, at least the last 6-7 years that I know of. I don't know for back, but annually meeting going back because every year things changed. We don't know what, you know, economically what's going to happen, or even on the homeless situation. I mean, one year we have something else, another year is something else. So that could change. Granted, we want it for the next 5 years, but annually revisit it. Even alphabetically, I'm not comfortable with it. That's another thing. I mean, having it in this ranking and alphabetically, both of them, I don't think it's a great, in my opinion. I mean, transitional housing is all the way down, but it's one of the important, I guess, situations, especially if it's a domestic violence and stuff like that. So I'm thinking have some other way of. I think the way we had it so far, I'm happy the way it was moving forward, but just.
Mrs. Gabrielian, sorry.
Thank you. I don't know, in my opinion of the process and what we're trying to come up with is one of the first things we do in order to serve the community is to do a needs assessment. And this is part of the needs assessment. And you went out to the community, to the organizations that serve the community, to the educational institutions that serve the community, to the social network, et cetera, et cetera. And this was their input. I see it as very valuable input because a needs assessment is step one for serving the community. I mean, they didn't ask me what I needed and what my opinion was, because you're not serving me, we're serving them. So I see it as incredibly valuable information. The ranking is valuable. I don't know that if we leave the ranking and the knowledge that we've just gained through this whole process ranked, it would only help us to assess, should I give it to something that's at the, they say is at the top ranking, or should I give it to, a group that's below? Now we want to serve the community as a whole, and we know they need all kinds of services, and I think that's where we come in and we say, let's apportion a little bit to this, even though it's not the highest ranking, because otherwise we're not serving. We're leaving a big hole. So that's my input. I think it's important information. And I don't know, how we use it ultimately. Are we going to get one and just say, eliminate it outright. I don't know, we've never done that, but let's
Committee
see.
member Quinones Gabrielian, you make a good point. The program priorities are listed, like we had mentioned, they're ranked at this time. They will be used for the committee as a tool to make funding recommendations. So that being said, when you look at this list at this time and the folks that are going to come in and present their proposals and explain why they need the funds, you would use this as a tool and a guide to see what the community needs. It's something for you all to consider, how you want to use it.
Thank you. Hold on. Monica, please.
I agree with Commissioner Member Gabriel Quinones that this is a valuable tool and that you've done, and with Commissioner Armenian, that you've done a fantastic job in gathering the responses of so many people. At the same time, this is a snapshot of one group of people who wanted to respond to this survey. It's not a representation of everybody. Honestly, I don't know the percentage of renters versus homeowners outside of the responders to this survey. And I agree that this is a tool, and our job is to take it as one factor of many factors based on the applicants before us, based on their proven history, the amount of money we have, the amount of money they need, the minimum there's so many factors that go into our decision making that, you know, this is just one factor. And I think that having been given this information, I'm okay with not having it ranked, but for each category to say what are the important subcategories. And we take it as a tool and implement it as we see fit, because we've been put here by somebody who trusts our judgment, and we have ties in the community. So we shouldn't be tied to, 700 people responding a survey. It should be used as a very useful tool and as one factor.
I agree. I think I agree with everyone. I mean, every factor is a unique factor itself. Every need is a unique need to itself. Yeah, I don't think I want to number any one of them. I would not for sure put what we call it, the safety factor or the training at the top. I know, at least from the meeting itself, just those people that were there, 125 or so people, the housing questions were more than anything else. Every one of them had at least one question about the housing, whether the prices of the new projects are higher, lower, or whatever. But most of the questions were on the housing and less of anything else. So I would totally consider that also, in order for us to not to number them. I don't want to number them. I don't think numbering it's a true picture of it in reality. And then we're gonna, with doing that, I believe we're gonna limit and to a certain level limit our nonprofits that they have been serving our community for so many years, and we know them, we see them every year. We're going to limit their efforts, because if we categorize it in a different way, as what it's presented right now, it shows anti-crime, none of these organizations that do our social services have any programs in that. Now they have to go back and recreate something that out of their scope, that out of their knowledge of the actual jobs that they have done before, of the programs that they've served and managed. So that's going to bring it a lot of different issues for those organizations, first of all. Second, it's not going to be a true picture of what the needs are. So I would really not number them, for sure. If I'm numbering them, I will revise the numbering and replacing the top to bottom list some other way. That's how I see it. I don't think the numbering is really a true question. Anybody?
I don't think we should renumber it. This is based on the survey, so we should either decide to number them or not number them.
Not number 'em.
Oh,
I'm saying not number
I
'em.
thought you were saying renumber them in the different
Well,
order.
not number them, or at least if we are going to number them, that through, as I was there, besides the survey itself, I think most of the people that they even took the survey, I took the survey also myself, just to see what's exactly and how the questions, level out basically or moves forward. So anti-crime program, yeah, I may be concerned about the thefts and the small robberies and things that goes on. But as an older or a senior citizen walking down the street, their mindset is different. Their needs are different. That anti-crime is a factor in everybody's life, basically. Crime is a factor and basically decision maker where you live. What community you want to be.
I'm not disputing that part. I'm
Right,
just
well,
saying that the
that's why I'm
choice.
saying
the
that's not an actual true picture of, the anti-crime is not the true picture of the entire community.
I'm saying that we cannot substitute our own rankings for a survey ranking. I think the choice should be either there be rankings or there be no rankings.
That's
think
what I'm saying,
that's the
no
only-
ranking, and if
Okay.
there was any ranking, that shouldn't be top first item.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, the next question I had was, would you like it to be scrambled, but yet we put the high priority need under the priorities that were considered high level, like ranked either 1 or 2, for instance? Would that work for the committee as well?
Thank you, Chair. Under the public social services, domestic violence is number 8. Every year after year, we have agency coming for domestic violence. What's more important than that? That is ranked number 8. Am I wrong here? I mean, let's be reality here, right? So if you do it alphabetically, granted is D, but guess what? Youth services? We always fund youth services. It's going to fall all the way to the bottom. There's no way we can rank these ourselves because all of them are important. Homeless is important. They're all important. I think we should see on the yearly the agencies that come, so A, we don't discourage them. You're not ranked, you're all the way down there, your chances are slim. We don't want to give that message to them. And we also don't want to have it granted. It's a tool in my mind, but I don't want to be affected that, you know what, somebody came with the kickboxing classes, I'll rather give it to you than the domestic violence. I don't want that pressure on me as well to say, I think we should see it as annually the way they come to us. Granted, it's the ranking is correct. They took the survey. You guys did a great job. All those are there, but we have seen the agencies that come to us. I don't know how am I going to tell domestic violence you're not important. I'd rather do the sidewalks.
Chair Avedisian, members of the committee, if you want to go before me, please go ahead.
Please, thank you. 100% agree. And what I don't want to see happen, I don't want an organization to self-select out because they see that their domestic violence is number 8 on the list, right? Because we want them to come with whatever they think the needs are, and then we will assess. So I think that's a vote for no ranking, scramble it, whatever you want, keep the list. However, I'm going to throw one more wrench into this, if you'll allow me. We have very little ability to affect the housing category. That is a city council level kind of affordable housing is such a big issue in the state. Nothing we do with our very limited funds is going to affect any of the 1 through 7. So I even question whether or not, for example, should that even be on the list, even though loud and clear from the input that that's a problem. It's just not a problem that CDBG can solve.
Apologies to you all. I should have been more clear on that. Because this is the consolidated plan includes CDBG, the ESG, and the home program. So we have 3 entitlement programs through HUD that we are combined. So housing is included because the home program provides affordable housing and the different ranks as you see there, as well as our homeless services section that provides homeless services aside from CDBG. So that's why they're included. So just to make that
Public
clear.
neighborhood is part of it too?
Actually, neighborhood improvements are part of CDBG.
Public, sidewalk improvement?
Correct, correct. They can be. They
Yeah,
can.
but we've never seen a proposal, because that's a city
Very
thing.
rarely, but
right?
yes, they can be.
It's Public Works, really. Okay, that helps, thank you.
Chair Avedisi, members of the committee, I think one thing for us all to keep in mind is, as part of the HUD requirement, I think they want to know what your community thinks is important. And I agree with what your observations are, that this is a very small portion of your community, Glendale having over 188,000 people. 759 responses is a small portion of it. Yet all 188,000 had the opportunity in some way, hoping that if we were able to outreach to them to respond, except this is intended for the low income, right? So I'm sure there are needs, and some people might have seen it and said, oh, well, I won't benefit from this because I don't fall within the income categories that this is serving. So I guess what I want to just put out there, I don't have an opinion one way or the other whether it should be ranked or not. But I think the reason HUD wants to see this is because they want us, the city, and for themselves, and for your community agencies to know what is important to your community. Now, whether enough of the population that needs services, for example, we all know domestic violence services are important, I agree with you. Now, whether that population took the survey to be able to have a louder voice in the survey results, that's the question. I think that's what you guys are sort of debating up here. Whether you want to allow for the committee as a whole to be able to make that decision when you see those proposals. These are just supposed to be, again, a snapshot, like you mentioned. So it's a point in time at that time of the year when we put out these efforts and hear from these agencies. Yet it is also important, committee member Gabriela Quinones mentioned, that this is what your community felt was most important at the time, at least for those who responded. So all this to say that you don't necessarily have to fund the proposals based on this. You can choose as a committee to say, this will be your guide, like Maggie mentioned, is this will be your guide, but that doesn't mean that any one of the categories should or will be considered higher or lower than another. And maybe that's what it is if you don't number them and you leave them bulleted, it won't give the wrong message to your community, to the community agencies, or to to the community overall, saying, well, why did you ask me to rank these if you're not going to keep the priorities in the order that they are? So again, the decision is up to the committee to decide whether you want to leave them this way, ranked or not, but it does not have to be the way that you fund the programs. You can make a decision to say that these will be the guides, this is what the community said, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a proposal that is before you for anti-crime needs to have a higher rating in the evaluation compared to domestic violence services. So I just wanted you to be aware that even if we keep them ranked or not, it doesn't matter, but if you do keep them ranked, that doesn't mean that they have to be given a higher priority in your evaluation. So you could, as a committee, say that this will just be a guide, but that doesn't necessarily mean, and we would also make that clear in our RFP proposals that, this isn't the ranking that the committee is going to use to fund the proposals that are coming in. This is just what we heard from our community, and that's what the community said. Now, whether these agencies go back out and talk to the public that they serve and they're able to corroborate that, in the next year when we talk to people, maybe these are the needs that are now shifting and changing, and the communities start to come up with new programs that they're able to put out to be able to serve what that changing need is, if that makes sense. Because I think, again, these are just point in time, and yes, these are the proposals that you've seen, but most probably these agencies have put these programs in place because those were the needs over the years. And so if the needs are changing and they're not able to serve the people But if they continue to serve the people and they're back here showing you proof that they're serving the people in the programs that you're funding, then you'll see that there is a need. But if there's a program that you funded where you've seen that the numbers are dwindling down and they're not able to meet those needs, then you can look back at this list and say, you know what, maybe that wasn't a higher priority anymore in the next 2 years. Because again, this is a 5-year plan, not a 1-year plan. Again, I don't have a strong opinion one way or another, but I just wanted to put that out there for the committee to keep in mind.
Thank you for your explanation. Definitely makes sense. My only concern, I mean, when I'm looking as the organization, getting the RFP and looking at the proposals, looking at the rankings, I'm automatically gonna, I don't know, default, delete myself out. Say, okay, oh, they're considering more anti-crime programs, and next mental health. So I'm not organized, or I'm not set up to serve any of these needs. So automatically I'm not gonna, they may misunderstand it. We may think differently when it comes to us and decide otherwise. Different ways we look at the ranking as a whole. But the organization, when it's receiving the RFPs and they see these rankings as it's written out of the survey, then they may say, okay, you know what, I think as an organization, I'm not set up to do any of the services, not able to do any of the services as ranked. And if I go and I'm on the number 8 on the list or number 7 on the list that I serve, then maybe I won't have a chance. As it is, the funding is so little that I have a little chance of getting my whole ask or portion of it or none of it. This way, I'm gonna go, not even gonna, ask for anything because I can't, serve it. So I'm thinking that might give them some confusion or way out.
Just a brief comment. I know, like, at the bottom of this slide, you have listed in priority ranked according to survey results, because you're just reporting out what happened. But if we're going to communicate it out, I don't mind if there's numbers on there, but I just wouldn't qualify it as, that this is the way we're going to evaluate what comes in. We're going to evaluate it based on what comes in, and then within those, we're going to make some decisions. We're going to keep this input in mind, right, in terms of priority areas. But a lot of times, let's face it, some of our decisions are also made just based on the little money that's left. Sometimes we cut programs out that might be number 1 on a list. So that's my only thing, is I don't want us to skew what comes in from our organizations. So whatever we can do to reflect that in the process, I'm okay. I mean, obviously, you have to show it this way because this is the way this particular effort panned out. But that, when we go to a motion here, I would not want the motion to say that we're going to consider these based on like this ranking. I would just want to say something like we approve the overall plan, which has everything that we normally deal with is in here somewhere. And then, when you do the process, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, we'll just, solicit everyone to input whatever propose whatever they want to propose.
And Committee Member Armenian, Chair Avedissian, members of the Advisory Committee, Committee Member Armenian, you make a good point. The next report will reflect that. And when you look at the next report, you will see in the application process that the proposals need to meet a program priority. It doesn't say a high-ranking program priority, but a program priority. So that automatically will qualify them just off the bat. It's like we had mentioned, it's a guide and a tool for you as a committee to use in the next stage of review. And then let's also consider the next stage of review and approval will be the City Council. So really, and this is how we explained it to our community, we said that you are part of this process, as is the committee, but as is final, you make the recommendations, but the City Council makes the final decision. So it's a threefold process.
Regard,
you. I want to say that, well, to reiterate, once again, I think the only change is the only constant, right? Everything changes for one reason or another. And yes, this is only a snapshot in time, but through the years on a historical basis, if 100 years from now, whoever's sitting here, we're not going to continue to try and match the organizations that are serving our community when probably this has changed. We have to look at it at some point in time. It's a factor that's important. I also agree that we should not discourage anyone. So when you do send out the letter, say all of these are priorities in Glendale, and not say they're just what the community said. Don't say it like that. But and I know you won't. But I'm just saying they're all important. They're all important.
Sure.
You know, and so I think because we don't want to discourage anybody. I realize that, and I don't think that we are. I think that those who really need the money are going to come here and give us a request, and make it fit. So but I don't want to. Yeah, just my own. I don't want to ignore the input of whoever showed up and took their time to tell us this is important to us. So I think it's important, even if it's a snapshot. Next year we'll look at it again, and reassess it. But it's an important issue, and it should be kept as a picture of this is what the community told us.
You're absolutely right, and that's, again, if we don't number it, I think we're just all good. Then everybody can understand and come in and give their proposals the way, whatever they feel that their community, their people they're serving, their needs are. But if we number it, they may think of it differently. They may discourage to come in. So I think we should get going forward. Yes. Oh. Oops. Okay, sorry.
I want to propose that we take the numbers out, but keep it in the order that is listed here as bullet points. I think that cuts, the best compromise of the wanting to have it in the order, but not putting a number on it, so that then we're not faced with trying to explain why there was no organization here with anti-crime program, and that's why we're not funding. But if we just have it bullet points, we keep the integrity of the report, but we're not causing self-selection and criticism for not funding something that's high priority, which hasn't appeared in front of us.
I agree, and I think we hashed out this question long enough. I think we should move on, and if I can get a motion, the way you like, the way you want to word the motion, and we can move forward.
I just want to correct the document here. I think it's a correction before we move to pass it. Exhibit 3 on page 2 on top, it says that the YMCA receives 1,500 calls a year for domestic violence.
It's YWCA.
Can we please correct that? Okay, I thought it would be.
Good catch.
Okay.
I mean, just to bring it up to Ms. Manukian's point, if we get 1,500 calls from just one agency, not counting the police department, and this is for domestic violence, and you want me not to rank that high and put kickboxing up?
Okay, who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to leave it the way it is, except take the numberings out and just have a bullet points next to it.
Do I
So
have a second?
not having it numbered, in other words. So the motion will be to leave the Exhibit 4 the way it is, except taking out the numberings.
The ranking.
Number.
Say that.
Motion to approve the 2025-2030 Consolidation Plan Program priorities and FY 2020 CDBG program priorities as Exhibit 4 minus the numbers next to each category.
Bulleted.
Second,
Bullet, yeah.
Do I have a second?
yes, second.
Second, do you have any other recommendations or changes before motion? The roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Caribbean,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian, Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes,
and Chair Avedisian.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
What's next, please?
Certainly. Item 4C, fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Public Social Services Request for Proposal Packet. At one is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Public Social Services Request for Proposal Packet.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, we have a very short PowerPoint presentation for you regarding the request for proposal packet. And of course, this will be done via Zoom grants this year. We have about $255,000 as estimated for public social services funding. And the program priorities, now that we know how we want to put them, will be uploaded into the Zoom grants as Exhibit G in the library tab. Right after the CDBG Advisory Committee approves the program priorities, which you've just done. So we will be including that. Now, if you want to look at Exhibit 1, question number 9, I know I don't want to go back to our last report, but in Exhibit 1 on question 9, again, I want to specify, it says, specify which of the 25-26 CDBG.
Just a second.
yeah, keep going.
Sure.
Okay.
So once you get to question 9, it says specify which of the 25-26, it's at the top, 25-26 CDBG program priorities the proposed project addresses. Check all that apply, and then see Exhibit G in the library tab for the list of program priorities. Just to let you know, we will be updating those check boxes, because currently they're in this order, but they will be updated. But notice it doesn't say ranked or any, we don't have any of that in language within the application itself.
But are these going to be the only?
No, we will
Oh.
be updating it with the new consolidated plan program priorities that
It'd
we
be
just
more
approved.
names.
Additional.
So in previous years, there was no domestic violence category?
There was not. It was under homeless services.
Interesting.
I think it would be appropriate to add that and the other priorities.
Yeah, they will all be included now with the new 25-30 consolidated plan. So I wanted to single that out.
Thank you. Is important.
And then, sorry. There will be 9,
9 categories.
because the consolidated plan, the survey. Yeah. Sure. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about Zoom grants. This will be the second year of utilizing the Zoom grants online proposal submission system. It's been working really well. We had a really good experience with it our first year. Because they have such extensive knowledge in CDBG entitlement programs, federal, state, and local programs as well. Staff is also going to be working with Zoom Grants technical support to set up the system to go live mid-November. We will be going to the City Council with your recommendations today. And once we do, we will be releasing the RFP after the City Council approves everything. Staff is going to continue to do trainings with the community agencies as well as the committee upon this review, and we'll just do a kind of a refresher. I actually needed a refresher myself, because when you don't use it for a few months, you'd be surprised. And then Zoom Grants is also contracted for about 36 months. We're going to try and go through 2 to 3 grant cycles just to see how the system works. We're currently working on the year 1 contracts that have been uploaded into the system, as well as the goals and outcomes. So as I promised to you, Committee Member Garibian, we are working with Zoom Grants to hopefully get you a better document to look at when we provide you with those mid-year reports. Much easier to read and visually pleasing. And then, of course, we'll continue to provide, seek feedback from the community agencies and the committee as end users. So for the RFP packets for public social services, the RFP packet is included as Exhibit 1, as we had shown you. The RFP will also be available to community agencies who attend that mandatory technical support meeting. After the confirmed attendance at this mandatory meeting, a link will be provided to these agencies to access Zoom Grants online system so they can prepare the proposal for submission. So our scheduled date for the technical support meeting is December 4th, 2024. And we're pushing at January 10th, 2025 as the submission date, final day to submit. We're pushing it back a little because it is very difficult for many agencies to get that in right before the holidays. So we're giving them an additional week and a half, 2 weeks to get that in right after the holidays are over. That concludes my presentation, very short and sweet, as promised.
Thank you. One question, or just one. First of all, thank you for the reports. I know last year many of our agencies used Zoom Grants, and we looked at it. There were some small glitches, I think, here and there. But overall, I don't know if anyone has came out and said anything about the program itself. Is it something that they're happy with, or they rather do it the old way? Is it more comfortable? Is it more cumbersome this way, or otherwise? Or are we locked in with the Zoom Grants company or organization, whatever, with the program, or is there may be other groups that they have better programming that it can be offered?
These
I
are
don't know how our agreement is with them.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, these are really great questions. We are locked in for 36 months, so we have another 2 years with Zoom Grants. Feedback from community agencies, I will say this, they actually had a wonderful time utilizing the system. I believe it's probably easier for them than printing out 9 separate copies of, it's pretty daunting to print out those copies, especially those financial statements that can be 100 pages thick. So uploading those into Zoom Grants and having it there kind of sitting there as, for them to use and utilize, I feel that they're gonna appreciate it more this year than last year, because all they have to do is plug it in and update their system. So I think it should be easier for them this year. Last year, I had pretty much no complaints. They actually appreciated it. They liked it. They didn't have to rush over to our building to come in physically and drop off a box. They appreciated that part of it. So far, we're really happy with the system. Now, are we looking at other systems? The question that you had, we're always looking for new ways to make improvements. We attend a lot of CDBG conferences, and at those conferences, we have a lot of businesses that come in and they want us to test their products. So Zoom Grants was one of those that we had seen at the previous conference that we had attended in St. Paul, Minnesota. There are 2 other systems that are used nationally. We will look into them if we feel that Zoom Grants isn't doing what we need it to do. But that's something that we need to look at it for a good 3-year period to see how it works for us in a sense, for our needs at least.
Are there other neighboring cities that are using the similar systems?
I would have to ask. I have not asked if other neighboring cities are using it. I do know that the Housing Rights Center already had an account with Zoom Grants, so I'm assuming they have about 20 municipalities that they receive CDBG funding from. So I could probably reach out to them and see which cities that are utilizing Zoom Grants and find out, because they were the only agency that actually had an account with Zoom Grants.
Thank you. Yes.
A question, other than the priorities which you will change, have you changed any other question or structure from last year?
We have not, that's a really good question. That's actually why we present you with the packet. So you're aware of any changes that we make, any major changes you will see and you will actually vote on and you will provide us with some direction on. For public social services, there really are no updates or changes. It's just the updated program priorities that will be uploaded and corrected into the system, and that's pretty much it for public social services.
Thank you.
I'm
Question?
just gonna assume that the Zoom grant definitely helps you guys too, right? As far as saving time, because it's a lot more processed, easier. But how about cost-wise? Does it cost us more or less as far as staff time versus Zoom grant cost?
Committee member Garabian and members of the committee, our IT department pays for the costs, so it doesn't cost our department directly. It's one of the costs that they pick up through the IT department. So there is no additional cost to us, but there is a cost to the city. I would say, we haven't really done the analysis, but I would say that it probably would be the same if you were to look at the cost savings from the printing and the staff and the back and forth. So I don't know that there's a direct cost I could allocate to it, but it definitely is not something that's costing the department directly. It's coming from the IT budget, and this is something that we're doing with other programs as well. Like if there is a system that we could use to go away from the manual and the paper, we're looking for those options citywide. So it is a direction that the city is going overall.
Thank you. Just have an off-topic question going back to our original survey. We had the comparisons that we did Glendale to LA County. Is that a comparison that we have to do to county, or why not neighboring cities, for example, Burbank, Pasadena? We're a lot more compatible to each other.
That's a great question. The American Community Survey, I can plug in other cities and I can include that in an analysis for the committee if you would like. If you have particular benchmarks you'd like, I'd be more than happy to include that in future reports. We just put LA County so you could see it as a whole because there's so much area to cover in LA County. That being said, if you feel that Pasadena, Burbank,
More
Santa
of
Clarita,
apple to
whichever cities you prefer, I can include that in analysis.
Similar cities
Right.
as size or population.
Population.
Yeah,
I mean, I
just-
definitely do Burbank, Pasadena, just because we're
Definitely.
always collaborating, but
Exactly.
I think also looking at cities of similar, within LA County, cities of similar size, although we are still probably the third or fourth largest in LA County.
I think we can push, I don't know if you can do San Gabriel Valley or San Fernando Valley or San Gabriel Valley, or something that, if you want to go wider, but LA County is a huge, and so much variance in county. I think we're compared, very hard to compare them.
We could definitely do that.
It's also, the HUD probably also looks at it countywide as well, too. Does HUD use that,
They
Maggie?
do. This is more for our program priority analysis that we do each year, just to give the committee a gauge of where we stand in poverty, the number of children that live in a household, the number of seniors, the cost of living, those types of things.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Public Social Services Request for Proposal Packet.
I'll second that.
And seconded, Mr. Aribian. Roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Garibian,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes.
and Chair Avedisian.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 4D, fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Capital Improvement Project Request for Proposal Packet. At 1 is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Capital Improvement Project Request for Proposal Packet.
So I promise this will be very repetitive from, just like the public social services This is the capital improvement proposal packet, but there are new policies in place. So Committee Member Manukian, as you had mentioned, is there anything new? Yes. For capital improvement, there are a few new items that we have that have been updated since last year. So for the RFP proposal packet for 25-26, we're proposing $605,000 as an estimated funding for community agencies to utilize in the coming year. Again, program priorities will be updated into Zoom grants now that you've made your recommendations. They also include, this proposal packet also includes under the instructions section, the 5 policies that you had made recommendations on last year and the City Council approved. So those are very important policy decisions you all made, and they are part of the packet again this year. Again, we are still trying to educate our agencies on the BABA Act, the Build America, Buy America Act, because any funding moving forward from 23-24 and on, materials, steel, iron, different types of materials will need to be built in America and bought in America, including a new NEPA review process. So this is brand new. This is actually that came forth from the planning department now that we're working with our current community agencies. There's a new NEPA review policy regarding radon testing for buildings, so we've included that in the proposal packet as well. And I'll get into that a little bit more. Zoom grants, I won't get into this. This is pretty much the same exact thing from Public Social Services. It has been going really well. We've had a lot of positive feedback because there are a lot of plans and design elements that you have to upload into the system, so that is very helpful to have in Zoom grants regarding capital improvement projects. Again, same capital improvement projects, Exhibit 1 report, instructions and application is within the report. We will again be updating the program priorities. They are also part of this, and so that will be updated. Mandatory meeting for the technical support will also be on December 4th. We do break up those sessions. So session 1 will be for Public Social Services, and those agencies who are going to also apply for capital improvement will stick around for the second half, and they will participate in the technical support meeting. So we separate, might be on the same day, but they're 2 separate meetings, or 2 separate sessions, I should say. And again, updates to the CIP RFP. So back in November of 2024, the City Council approved, sorry, I should have said 2023. I apologize, that's not 2024. It should be November of 2023. The City Council approved, I'm so trying to get ahead of it. The City Council approved 5 policy recommendations made by the CDBG Advisory Committee, and those policies are currently part of the proposal packet. Now, these policies are a result of the timeliness expenditure requirements that we would always bring to you in the meetings, but they were incorporated into our CDBG workout plan that we had to submit to HUD, and we actually had to do that recently as well. So it helps to have these policies in place to show that we are making a really good effort to spend down our funds. Now, the new HUD NEPA review, that's something I wanted to talk about a little bit more. As part of the NEPA review, a new requirement has been added regarding radon. So if awarded CDBG CIP funding, community agencies are going to could be required to provide proof of radon testing for their existing building or buildings which they're seeking funds for. There are some exemptions to that if the building is only being used under 4 hours a day, which most of the agencies that come in asking for funds, they're there all day long providing a lot of good services. So we know that that's probably not going to be the case. Now, Ms. Kabanjan has worked with Home Minutemen Ararat chapter as well as Catholic Charities this year, and they both had their radon testing completed within. Ms. Kabanjan, how many, you want to give us a little bit of an update on radon testing?
Sure. It takes about 48 hours for the facility to be closed, and the testing is completed within a week. There's a stack of report that is submitted from the testing company to the agency, and that's when it shows the negative and positive result.
And Ms. Kabanjan, any idea on the cost of doing the radon testing?
Around 5,000?
So this is something, once they have it and they apply for funding again, they're gonna have that. And we just let our planning department know. We submit that testing information to our planning department. And what they do is they approve the NEPA review. And this is later on, once our agencies are funded. This is not during, did you want to?
No, I was just going to ask you for clarification. Since you mentioned that our chapter had to do this, so this requirement isn't necessarily for new projects that are funded in 25, 26. It's also for currently funded projects that have not done the NEPA yet.
Exactly. So what happened was the current two projects that we have for 24, 25, which are Glendale Auto chapter bathroom renovation, as well as Catholic Charities roofing project. Those two projects received funding this year. When we're in that NEPA review, the environmental process is the first process before we start our contract, and then, of course, construction. So our planning department let us know that this is a brand-new rule once they were trying to input the NEPA review information in. So once we found that out, I said, well, this is a great time to include that in our proposal because it is $5,000 to get this done. So this is going to be an important component for future agencies to know that this is something they have to do before they get.
So this is a one-time testing, and it could carry on. Is there a lifetime? Is it, or it's?
I would have to ask our planning department. I know that they had said once they have it, it's good to go, but I could look into it a little deeper and find out what the time frame is, how many years that is. I want to say it's about 10 years, but I'd have to definitely dig a little deeper on that.
Beyond the testing, though, if it comes back with a certain result, what does that mean?
Well, that's the other component. We'd have to ask our planning department, what do we do next?
Yes, that could be any of the older buildings, most of the older buildings potentially, if some portion of the building has never been touched or whatever, it most likely have it.
Apparently we were looking at it, Ms. Alexanian and I were looking at radon. Apparently it's in the ground. So basically it would be just specific. So for instance, if you have a parking lot project, that's not gonna, it won't even matter to those types of projects. But apparently radon seeps into the ground through uranium deposits, and that's how they check the levels of it. So we'll provide a report because I believe that we need to get a little deeper into what our agencies need to do to best prepare once they do get funded, and this is one of the big ones.
So, I mean, this opens up a little bit of a can of worms because they're not going to do the testing, right, until they have a project. So we're going to say, well, part of the project is to do the testing, right? If the testing comes back, and this is why I asked the question, if the testing comes back with a certain result, which requires remediation of some sort, if they can even do that, does that potentially kill a project? And then we're going to be coming back here to reallocate funds that we already allocated because they won't know that until after we've already made our decision. So this is a little bit of a catch-22 situation.
It is. It definitely is. So this is something we are going to be looking at to figure out
That's
how
why,
to
I mean, I
move
think if
forward.
staff, before we put out the RFP, could look into the what-if scenario here of, you know, if it comes back with a certain result, what could that mean in this process? Because that way we could maybe bake something into this. I don't know how you would bake it in, because they're not going to go out before they even do a project and say, well, we already spent $5,000 and we did the radon testing, now here's our project. Chances are most of these organizations aren't going to have that kind of funding available to just invest in advance of an application process.
I mean, just to add to that, is this for a HUD requirement, or is this something that's gonna go within the city limits and state limits for any construction permits required?
I cannot answer if it's going to be outside of HUD. This is definitely a HUD review for sure.
It's part of the NEPA, which is an environmental review requirement as part of federal environmental review requirement. So it's sort of like the opposite of CEQA, which is the state level. So outside of HUD, I think it would be required as well, because it's not a HUD requirement per se, it's the NEPA requirement. So any other project that's not HUD funded that is required to do a NEPA would need to do this testing as well.
That's where I'm trying to go at. So if even if they don't ask for HUD, but they're gonna have to do construction one way or another, an environmental report will be needed, they have to go through this. So is it something, I know they don't wanna spend the money, but eventually, if you're gonna do the construction, eventually you're gonna have to do it. Maybe you wanna spend the money before we actually approve it. I mean, most of them, if they're sitting on the landfill, probably have more problem than, depends where they are and what city they're in. But it's something, as he said, we're opening up can of worms to come back. The chances probably are slim, but you never know. Even one agency is something they're gonna do. Maybe we should give them the option. Do you wanna do this before, at least give them that option that if they wanna spend the money, not knowing, because eventually you might need it or something.
Committee member,
I have a couple
Oh.
of questions regarding, you said that they could be required. So my question is, who's making the decision whether it's required, or are there criteria to announce ahead of time? And the second question is, would we tell the agencies to include this cost in their RFP response in terms of construction
The
costs?
soft cost can't be.
It's a okay. So to answer your question, Committee Member Manukian, from what I gathered from the Planning Department, and he had sent me, because he's in the system right now, and we have a system that we use for the NEPA review. And there are exemptions to that. And one of the exemptions, as I had mentioned, was if the building is not being used more than 4 hours a day. That's the first exemption. So if it's not being used more than 4 hours a day, it's less than 4 hours a day, it's not even considered. They don't have to do it. If we are going to be having them do a radon testing, that's under pre-development. That's pre-construction costs, unfortunately. So they have to leverage those funds for that. Now, once I get into the next slide, which is the policies, one of the policies that we had asked our agencies to do is, it's a commitment, policy number 4, it's a commitment for timely completion. And so that timely completion of CIP projects reflected in the necessary completion of project planning and design. So this would fall under that. It would fall under project readiness, completion, or near completion of pre-construction activities. So if they are really serious about moving forward with this project, they would have to make those considerations. And there are other environmental testing and that they do along with, well, now with radon. So that would be a different factor. We will talk to our planning department to gather a little bit more information on how to proceed, the timeline, the what-ifs, and the number of years, because that is important. Because if it is $5,000, and I don't even know if it's $5,000 dependent on square footage, how they're evaluating that.
Yeah.
We can find all of
Different
that
factors.
out.
I'm guessing it's gonna be like when you're buying a building, you have to do environmental report, phase 1. So they probably punch holes 1 or 2 places, so.
So I guess,
I don't know how they test it in reality. They go underground, they're going to
The
build
machine, like they read
I know.
mold, will read that.
I know that on phase 1. how
I
they
guess
do it,
coming back to the agenda item, how do we, if we accept this motion or pass a motion to accept the current way it's been set out by staff, but if you come back with something different from these additional research that you will do, how will that get incorporated into the RFP process? Because that's right around the corner.
Chair Avedisi and members of the committee, I think because this requirement wouldn't be a CDBG cost, it's part of their pre-planning, doing their environmental, the agencies would have had to do it if the project is important enough for them to proceed. So generally, when the projects come to us, we look at it as it's a high need, right? That the agency needs to complete that project because it's either a safety or some sort of a high need project for them to be able to continue serving the individuals. So I think this is just us putting it on their radar, because it's not a HUD requirement, but it's going to be an environmental requirement, and they're going to know. So the individuals that are helping them, prepare their project plans are probably going to let them know what those requirements are. So I'm not sure that we need to limit the projects from being able to apply. I think we just need to put it on their radar that this is a cost you're going to incur, and when they prepare their project cost, I think they just need to take that into consideration, and if their project is going to qualify for this, because we don't know. I mean, there are probably a lot of points that our planning department needs to look at as part of the environmental requirements. We'll definitely get clarification. If there are requirements that need to be met, we will put it as part of the RFP instructions, just to give them a heads up, or a link to a site that will give them that information so that they are aware. I just don't know that that would limit your ability to fund a project, because I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming that this is probably like lead testing, where if there is something that's found, they're gonna wanna take care of it. So I'm not sure that they're gonna wanna continue operating it with high levels of uranium that's found in the building, for example. So if it's a requirement and something comes of it, they're most probably gonna have to take care of it. But if there are some limitations that will impact the funding, then we'll definitely include that in the RFP instructions and bring it to your attention as part of the next meeting when you're reviewing the proposals, and we could address those questions to the agency that's here before you even make that recommendation.
I just have a question in response to your perspective, which is the only thing that's required by HUD is the testing, not the, whatever the results are, whatever they may have to do as a result of the testing? I mean, no, okay.
No.
So at that point, the unknown is if they have to remediate it based on, let's say, the city's requirements, putting HUD aside for a minute, that could affect the proposal, because, I don't know what the remediation costs could be for something like that, and that may kill a project, because we know how tight the budgets are usually on these projects. Again, I agree, it's not our problem to solve here today, but it could result in a back and forth once we get to the point of, like, we would get a proposal, hypothetically, right? Let's say it would include $5,000 in the budget for the radon testing. We make a decision to support a project based on the merits of that project and the need, what needs it meets, and then we're done. And then they come back and they do the testing, and then that may result in some other things later on that we'll have to deal with, I guess, when they happen.
We can't control that much of it. I mean, we can only suggest and ask, but we can't control whatever happens at that point. I guess we'll have to play it by ear, because it's all new to everybody. So whatever city planning is, they're gonna have to do it. I would love to see, maybe not even at the meeting, but at least for our personal knowledge, every one of us in the commission, that a small report from our planning department that gives us the really variations and effects of it, and how we can, mediate around it, or understand it, at least for us, so the organizations, just as an FYI, can get it. With that, I don't think there are more questions. Do you have a question?
Well,
Sorry.
I have a question on another point of the RFP. So under the social services RFP, there is a question that asks, what other funding sources is your agency using or planning to use to fund this program? That's number 26. Although there is a section for leveraging other funding, I didn't see that question in the capital improvements RFP. And if you recall, last year or session, we had, I think it was Door of Hope, who was waiting for funding from another governmental source. And I know that you knew about it, but it's not in the questionnaire. So maybe we should make sure that it's in the questionnaire, so that if they have applied for grants or other sources of funding, we know about it.
That only will help them to leverage their own project, but it wouldn't really matter for our consideration, in a sense.
would it not matter if they have other source of funding? I mean, we're asking that for social services. Why aren't we asking it for capital improvement?
Well, yeah, we could ask them, but I don't think that should, on the social services, because there's so many variety of levels of work that is being done, and every different agency gets so many different projects or programs they run, and they get multiple different grants from different governmental or non-governmental agencies. But when it comes to CIP, and that's what I believe, when it comes to CIP, it's limited grants, and it's not like every other organization can get those same grants. And grants are very limited and project-based only. If they apply to repair their roof, that grant, whatever they apply to us, it's just for that roof, and they cannot, well, maybe they can actually apply other state or whatever agencies to get grants for the same project.
I think
But-
I think both of them are requiring that information under leveraged funding sources and revenues. It's just under social services, we also have it as a written question. So-
That's what I noticed.
It's
So-
yeah, but both of them would still need to show their other revenue sources as to how they're paying for the different projects. It's just,
I noticed that, but the question number 26 also has or planning to use. So not what you already have, but are planning to apply to. And I mean, I've seen, announcements about government officials at different levels getting funding for agencies. I can name a few off the top of my head. I don't want to,
Right, no.
give specifics, but it might happen, and I don't know if it would harm us to put that in there to make sure that we're aware of all the information before making decisions. That's the harm in asking.
I don't think it will definitely.
And it's also
will
consistent,
Make a
I feel.
difference or harm any agency or us. Knowledge is better to know more details than anything else. And I think that's something probably very easy to have it added to the RFP, especially now that it's online. So it's easier to add a line, I believe. Yeah, I see they're shaking their head, so it is easy to do so.
Good.
I don't think it's not a big deal.
I agree.
but-
I think- And also, it sounded like, is it contingent on those funds? As it was in that other. It's not, it wasn't just what other sources is your agency using or planning to use to fund this program, right? But is this project contingent? Is your receipt of those funds contingent on carrying out this plan?
Because if the cost was big, just like Door of Hope, they could not use our funds unless, I think it was the Adam Schiff funds came in. So that kind of information helps us. Of course, the staff knew, but it's possible that another agency is not so forthcoming.
Yeah, sure.
Policy number 3. If I'm an agency reading this, I'm trying to figure out, do I need either or? Is it one replacing the other one? Or is it, so it's, I don't know, but versus or and? So, I don't know, can you clarify on this?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
So
but
policy
may
number
be the
3,
question.
the committee actually went back and forth on this. We had originally proposed 2 general contractor estimates as staff. We recommended 2. But the committee came back and said, how about we do 1? And there's a reason for that. Because once you get a contractor estimate, that contractor automatically is not allowed to bid if you get awarded CDBG funds. So if you had 2 contractors would not be available to bid on that project. That is why we just said 1 for sure. You have to have 1 contractor estimate reflecting those prevailing wage rates. But we do highly recommend that 2 estimates are given. And I think one agency provided 2 estimates.
Because projects are so, some of them are so small that a lot of contractors don't even want to touch it. So that becomes an issue, any
Exactly.
general contractor especially.
So you want to say 2 general contractors reflecting prevailing wages strongly
We're-
recommended,
we're s-
or?
It's strongly you have to have one.
Okay.
That's a requirement.
Right.
The policy is you have to have one, but if you have 2,
But they're not reflecting,
no,
they're still
they
reflecting.
all have to reflect
That's what I'm
prevailing
saying, we
wage
should
rates.
just
Yeah.
add that to it, so,
I see what you're saying.
so just add to the second, but general contract, 2 are strongly 2.
Because it doesn't say it,
Doesn't say, so I'm like, okay, I get 2 regular ones without the prevailing wage, and that offsets the one.
I think that
We just-
it doesn't hurt to have it. If it's doable,
We can
they
update
write it
that.
in, it doesn't hurt to have it. Okay, any other questions, suggestions, corrections, changes? Nothing else? I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, this policy number 5, is there a
Oh.
time frame you want them to come for the technical support meetings?
Right.
When?
So we had mentioned that the technical support meeting this year will be on December 4th. And we do send out an email, we do send out flyers, and we do do a whole media blast telling everyone that the RFP is going to be released. And we invite you to that technical support meeting. We let them know that it's mandatory. So that is all provided to agencies. We have a list of about 100 nonprofit agencies that we send that out to.
And the new ones who gonna inquire for first time, they'll know of this date?
Will know, they're actually already seeking information. We have 2 agencies that are seeking information that are brand new, that have never really worked with us before.
It will be in the RFP packet as well. So the information will be in the RFP. It will be advertised online as well. So yes.
Thank you, I'm done.
You sure now?
Yeah.
All right. Let's entertain a motion, please.
I'll make the motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-2026 CDBG Capital Improvement Project request for proposal packet with the proposed changes of adding 1 or 2 questions regarding alternative sources of funding. And also, I think the priorities will change based on the survey.
Second the motion.
Second motion. Roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Caribbean,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes.
and Chair Avedisian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. What's next, please?
Next is item 5, committee staff comments.
Okay. Staff, one second. Staff has any comments, any presentations beforehand?
Staff would like to wish our Chair Armik Avedissian a happy birthday, as well as our committee member Anita Quinones Gabrielian a happy birthday. It's
wow.
always nice at this time of the year, we have 2 birthdays to celebrate. So we're wishing you both a happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I wasn't looking for that comment, but okay. I appreciate that. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Okay, any other comments from the staff? No? Okay, commissioners?
Well,
Anyone?
let's start with the happy birthdays. So happy birthday to my colleagues, and I want to thank the staff and obviously my colleagues for great job done as always, especially the survey. It's a great improvement. Hopefully every year we get to have more and more people participate, and hopefully we'll find better ways to, or more ways to have more people engaged to it. So thank you so much to the staff.
I also want to thank staff. You really were prepared. This was a great meeting. I want to apologize for being, I wasn't late. You know that I could not change my schedule. This was a special meeting with 24-hour notice, and I did my very best to get here. So this is important to me. Thank you all. I think we're ready. We're ready for the process to start rolling. Thank you.
Ditto. Just
Alrighty.
ditto.
Thank you again, staff, for all you do and keeping us online, making sure that we do what we do right, and everything else that you guys do, especially the last community meeting. Again, I want to emphasize It was a great event, great participation, and the public, hopefully the public hears this and participates more when the future community meetings are scheduled. It's truly a great information session, learning for us and for the community members. It's some things that a lot of people that were surprised, the first timers. There were some that they've been there before or heard of it, but never participated. It was a great thing. One other just quick question I forgot to ask earlier. When is the city council presentation day?
We are,
Have it scheduled?
we do, we are shooting for November 5th, Tuesday, November 5th. It's a joint. We actually have meetings on election day because they are on Tuesdays. Our meetings are on Tuesdays. So it'll be in the
Really short
afternoon.
meeting.
It'll be an afternoon session.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, if nothing else, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.